Not a
Ready,
problem.
started. We're recording now, so go ahead.
Yeah, Danielle, please.
I do not have my flag. I apologize. But the meeting tonight is for the conduct of town business by the town board. And at the time the supervisor asks for public comment, you could let him know that you'd like to make a comment and just state your full name and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. And thank you for your anticipated cooperation.
Thank you, Danielle. I'd like to start the meeting off with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States
of America,
and to the
the republic for
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, everybody. A moment of silence, please, for
To the
all
flag,
of-
of the United States of America,
where we was
to the republic,
Still got problems with
which
that.
stands one nation, under God,
said on
indivisible,
delay.
Yeah,
with liberty.
You
justice.
want to mute them or don't knock them off, because then we have a problem.
I'm gonna mute him.
Okay. Okay, a moment of silence, please, for our men and women fighting all over the world for democracy and freedom, and for all our first responders, especially those during this pandemic on the front lines.
Who, me?
Thank you very much. So we have two public hearings tonight. The first public hearing is in regards to the term dates of the planning board. This particular legislation, we actually addressed it last meeting. We presented it. It doesn't need a planning board, Ulster County Planning Board referral. So is anybody here for the public hearing for the number 2 of the 2015 term dates for planning board members?
I am
James?
James Garofalo. I've previously advocated for the section 271 using the 7-year term so that you have one person changing over in the planning board each year, which means the majority of the board, it takes 4 years to turn over. Under a 5-person member with 1 per year, it takes 3 years to turn over the majority of the board. Under what you're proposing, there'll be a period where the majority of the board can turn over in 2 years. So one of the things I would suggest you think about doing is, rather than having the 2-person expiring years next to each other, that you separate them by at least a year. So you have 2, then 1, then 2, which means that it will once again take 3 years to turn over the majority of the board. So that's one thing I'd like you to think about. The second item is, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not sure if your section 22, paragraph 2 comes into play in whether or not this section 22 is applicable because of Article 9 in the New York State Constitution. I would hope that the Secretary of State, when you send it up there, will agree with you or disagree with you one way or another. But that's something that you should wait to hear from them before moving forward with changing the dates. Thank you.
Yeah, I could tell you that our attorneys went over this. We, as home rule, we have the we can change. Basically, a lot of different towns have different terms for planning board. This was a compromise between myself and the board. I know Mr. Baker is totally against it. He would like to see the 1 year for each planning board changeover. But that being said, we did look at this. We look at legal, we look to see what we could do, and so we have the right to do this. It's not a problem as far as legal asked it legally from the town legal counsel. But thank you very much, James. Appreciate your input.
Al, I would just like to make one comment. And
Yes, sir.
I think James did make a good suggestion in there. If we do go with 5, which I'm sure we will, that maybe we don't have it in successive years when you reappoint, potentially reappoint 2 people in 2 successive years. Maybe you could split it. So that's something we might want to look at as a possible change. In other words, first year, second year, I think it's only 1 person coming off. The third year, maybe 2 people, and then the fourth year, 2 people. Maybe you should be the third year, 2 people, and then you skip a year, only 1 person. And I don't know if it would work out okay, but that way you reduce the impact of potentially having 4 new people on the board in a 2 years span. I think that's what James is coming from, and that's kind of my objection.
January is saying.
So maybe that's something we could look at.
Well, the resolution's in front of us, so when we get to the resolution, the board determines what they want to do, if they like to look at that. And,
Yep.
I think if we do that, then it's gonna come into play where then you have to grandfather other years in for other people. It's gonna become, the only reason it worked out the way it worked out, the way it did is because we only had to affect 2 people in 1 year for each of them. If we start doing any more, then it's just, it's not gonna work properly. I know exactly what James is saying, and I would agree, but we do that, we're gonna have to change 4 people's terms, and the other 2 people, we're gonna probably have to do 3-year difference in their term rather than the 1 year. So I wouldn't be in favor of changing that, although I do understand what he's saying.
Okay, let's, is there any more discussion on the term limits for the planning board? Okay. So if there isn't any other remarks on that resolution, I would ask that we close the public hearing for that number 2 law on term dates for planning board members. So I need a motion to close the public hearing on that.
All motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you very much, gentlemen. The next public hearing is on the local law 2021. It has to do with the short-term rentals. So I'm going to leave that open to the people that are here that would like to make remarks or suggestions to that law and move forward. So give you like 3-4 minutes, talk about it to the board, what your understanding about the law, what you like about the law, what you don't like about the law. Want to start with you, Eric?
I guess so. I didn't expect to be, you guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, I didn't expect to be the only one here tonight, so thank you for this audience. I also didn't expect.
Joining too.
I think the doc is here for it too.
Okay, great. My wife wanted to join us tonight. She's sick. I guess the first question I have was, is comment on this matter open past tonight in any form, or is this it?
No,
Like for the public?
I would say to you, Eric, like, unlike the other law, this law requires Ulster County planning. So we sent the referral up and we're waiting for the referral. So the public hearing will remain open until the first meeting in March.
First meeting
with
in
the town
March.
board.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll try to get through my thoughts in 3 minutes. Like I said, my wife's sick tonight. She is the public speaker of the group and the more beautiful one of the 2 of us for sure. So thanks for indulging me. Just wanted to share a little bit. So my wife Raven and I bought this farm. We live on a farm in Marlboro, Angel View Farm. You guys may know it, back in 2015. At the time I had just an all-consuming job in cybersecurity, and my wife Raven was traveling nonstop, doing drug and alcohol interventions, and trying to get and keep people sober. And we knew those jobs weren't tenable for us in the long term. We were ready to settle down and start a family. And long story short, we bought this farm with the intention of farming it and building a business out of it and raising a family on it, passing it down to our kids. We were really grateful to have that opportunity. I don't know if there's any other farmers in here tonight, but starting a farm is not simple. It's not cheap, it takes time. So for us, using services like Airbnb and VRBO to book farm stays were just critical to getting us to where we're at today. It helped us put food on the table, pay our property taxes, put a down payment on our first tractor, plant our first field of lavender, even like the booth we have down at the farmer's market down the mountain. That stuff wouldn't have happened without Airbnb. And we were grateful to have the extra income. And I think, it's a positive thing. In general, being an Airbnb host isn't always ideal. It's not always comfortable. But it's what we had to work with at the time. So that's what we used. And I guess in closing, I just wanted to share two numbers with you guys. They're numbers that I think about a lot. Number one, about 15% of Americans go to bed hungry every night. And, my wife and I have counted ourselves among that 15%. Different points in our lives, in childhood and in adulthood. And, I wouldn't wish hunger on anyone, not hunger like that. So, I
got you.
Thanks. So number two, 70% of adult Americans don't have $1,000 saved. 70%. They don't have $1,000. Something goes wrong. My wife and I have certainly counted ourselves as part of that number two. Definitely many times, and definitely after we bought this farm. So Airbnb was really helpful for us in that moment. I think about those numbers a lot, and I think that as much as I like to think this community might be an exception to those numbers, and I don't think they are in any meaningful way, unfortunately. So when we talk about adopting short-term rental codes and rules, I think ultimately we're talking about giving people the ability to fend for themselves and to do for themselves with something that they have. So as such, I'd just like to thank members of the town board and the planning board and everybody in this room, obviously everybody who spent time working on this. I think it's really important for the community. So thank you. God bless you and God bless America. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
Bridget, do you have something you'd like to say, or?
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying to edit stuff out as Eric was talking, but that was very heartfelt. Thanks, Eric. At the end of this, may I first get the email address where to send notes after? Because I have a few things I won't be able to get to in 3 minutes.
You can send it to Al Lanzetta's email address, which is on the website.
Okay, great. I'll do that. Thanks. All right. Forgive me. I'm a little nervous because I was feeling for Eric there, and I'm in a similar boat. But first, I just want to really thank Mr. Baker and Ms. Cherubini for their endless patience and responses to my emails and trying to find all the information on the agendas and where to find the information. I'm still new to all this, so thanks for your patience. And I also thank Councilmember Cochran for your time and the work that went into drafting this proposal. I have a number of points to go through, which is basically just kind of touching on the, I'm sorry, should I stop?
No, I was going to say that was my brother, Tom, the building inspector who drafted. Just, I want to give credit where credit's due.
Actually, it was Al Lanzetta.
And Al.
Okay, well, I just want to thank all of you for your time on this.
You're welcome.
Credit where credit's due. I have a number of points. Basically, I just went through and read the draft as it is, so I'm just going to touch on it in order. I'm gonna fly through these. I'll skip some parts and I'll email it later. Section 1 in the definition of short-term rental, I would like to request changing the word dwelling to accommodations due to the nature of what this law is attempting to regulate. Second, I would like to offer a definition of accommodations as something more like an enclosure or an enclosed structure safe from the outdoor elements with, safe sleeping structures and environmental controls for refuse and human waste. Section C, I was wondering if it might be possible to rephrase or redefine the maximum capacity rule that's capped at 2 people per bedroom. I suggest something more like 2 people per bed or per sleeping accommodations per square footage or per bed square footage. The reason for this is, for example, in my own home, I have a queen size sleeper sofa in the living room. I have a fold up bed. I have a guest bedroom that has 2 queen size beds in it. But if I'm limited to 2 people per bedroom, that's 4 or 5 people I can't allow according to the current law. So I just want to know if we can open that up or redefine that. Section F, I'm not sure I understand this part. It just says units may be rented out for a minimum of 30 days per year. I don't really understand why there's a minimum there. Maybe there shouldn't be a minimum or maximum. So if you could revisit that, that'd be wonderful. Section G, on being an owner, I'm wondering if we could cut out if the town could add a line on applications that allows for somebody to apply on behalf of an owner. The reason being, we have folks who are disabled, who are non-English speakers, who maybe have poor reading comprehension. Maybe they have a legal conservator. We want to make this as inclusive as possible to other people. So not just specifically the owner filling out an application. I also understand the concern for keeping like corporations and, slumlords from New York out. Also in section G, if we could strike must also be a resident of Marlborough.
Oh, that's a must. That's a must. That's
Well,
a must.
I just want to know how you define that and what the requirement is there. If that's like, is that based on
Be a
your
resident.
voting record or whatever?
Yeah, so we discussed that at length, and one of the things was that you have to be a resident of the town of Marlborough.
Okay,
And
well,
that being
this is-
said, it's like you can't be an LLC out of the district and have a bunch of short-term rentals. So
Right.
limit that as much as possible and keep it to residential people that are residents.
right. Well, maybe you could consider limiting LLCs. You have other controls elsewhere for mitigating, uncontrolled short-term rentals and like people doing multiple units.
Like you said, put together, send all that email to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm just thinking, like this year's
Yeah.
really proven, like with COVID, if people commute for work, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Happy to talk more later offline. All right. Okay, I'm skipping one. I just, hours of operation, I would like to suggest maybe making that maybe instead of hours of operation on the application, maybe having restrictions on check-in and check-out and maybe quiet hour times. For example, nobody can check in before 8 a.m. cannot check in after 10 p.m. and in quiet hours between 10 and 8 a.m. And that actually helps, protect neighbors, businesses and things like that. But it's not really a business that's, we're open 24 hours. So it just doesn't logically make sense. Naming of adjoining properties, maybe that's information that the town has more readily available and they can help with that section.
Yeah,
Again, this is the-
actually, the applicant they could go on the Ulster County parcel viewer and they could see who's abutting them, and that's like pretty easy to do.
Okay, it might be nice to write that into the law because a newcomer won't know where to find that information. And also, I don't know if it's been confirmed yet what the annual payment is, but I know at the last meeting it was discussed $550 application or permit fee. That's an exceptionally high entry point and it disenfranchises some folks. Again, as Eric mentioned, I had 2 jobs last year and due to COVID, I've lost both of those streams of income. $200 or $550 is a lot.
Well, that's on the agenda, so we'll
Okay.
talk about it.
Yeah, so again, I just want to express my concern. I do have 3 income ideas to offer. One, have a separate application fee. Maybe have a separate, if it's approved, have an annual license fee. And again, maybe make those more
That is in
reasonable.
there.
Okay,
That's already there.
Mhm. We got all that stuff, but it's if you go through the thing,
There is an application
Yeah.
fee, there's an annual fee, there's a fire inspection fee, there's a whole bunch of fees.
Okay,
So-
well, with what I read from the last
So,
meeting, had
so
notes, I didn't see
basically,
it, so forgive me.
let me finish.
Um, Anyway, my point is to make those lower so that you're getting more income to the town, but
Yeah,
it's also
so-
affordable for people to enter. My
Right,
other suggestion is to maybe have like a tax.
okay, we're not gonna do that.
Okay, well, again, these are just my suggestions. Thank you.
So,
Um,
yeah, and, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and the long and short of it is I would like to see this at least start off a little bit less restrictive because it's a small town. There's not a lot of people interested in this. The more we're willing to open up some of these options and possibilities, we can see how it works and what's not working, maybe add amendments or raise fees later. There's a lot of support and entrepreneurial potential here. It's a whole new business stream this town's really not explored yet. So I'd really like to be part of this and see how we can make it work. So, let's not kill it before we give it a chance.
We're not.
Killing it. No one's killing it.
No,
Well, I
that's
mean,
okay.
with some of the definitions such as like dwellings, it makes it sound like only a house can be a rental. Let's open up those definitions, lower the price.
What
per
else
unit.
would you suggest would be a rental?
Well, I mean, people have like Airstream trailers or small houses.
No, that's
No, that's not
exactly
gonna
why we're
happen.
doing it, because that's
I
not
know.
what we want.
No, that's
We're
not
not,
gonna
we're
happen.
not gonna allow that.
I hear you. I'm expressing my interest and concern.
It's either gonna be a dwelling, and the compromise is possible, is to have a dwelling across the street
Or nearby.
or nearby, but
Again,
that's it.
So
The whole-
again, I
The
appreciate.
whole
your-
onus, yeah, excuse me, the whole onus of this was so we don't have the wild, wild west. This is going to be,
Exactly.
Absolutely.
this is going to be opportunity for people to raise a little bit of money, but this isn't going to be the wild west. So we're not doing Airstream.
No, I
trailers
totally
and
understand that.
farms.
And again, I'm just voicing my interest as a citizen. I
Absolutely.
live alone
You
as a
have all
single
the right
woman.
to do that.
I don't want to
Yeah.
open my home to people, but I have acres of land I could open up. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my 2 cents. I really appreciate your time. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank
So
you.
basically, if you look at where we created the minor site plan, and if you look at that, it's pretty clear what you have to do. As far as, and I don't think it's really that, we try to make it as non-restricted as possible. But those are the things that you would need to get in front of the planning board. So it goes through the planning board first. The object of that is to make sure that the applicant has done their homework. All these things have to be required before you get into the planning board. And there's things there that you don't need an engineer and you don't need a lawyer to do. So it makes it more easier for somebody to do it. So then the fee is actually, it's almost like a site plan. It's $550 for the application fee for the planning board, and it's $750 for the escrow. And I've been talking to the building inspector, and that's what we're going to talk about during the workshop as far as fees go. But basically, well, send me all your recommendations.
Right.
And,
And again,
and
that's my
now-
feedback is based on that, like $1,200 in fees. We might only make $4,000 a year, so we're giving away that much already. It's
Yeah.
basically nobody's going to be able to
Well,
afford.
we thought about other things as far as when the certificate comes, as far as maybe waiving it or something like that. So, but that's a planning board, just, I mean, that's a town board decision what we do. So that's why I put it on the workshop.
And we also got to be cognizant of the neighbors too. So I mean, it's like, we want this to be something that people like yourself or Eric or who can do this, and you could help yourself pay your taxes and have an income. But at the same time, you also got to be cognizant of neighbors. And that's why we did put some restrictions into the law, that you can't just put a trailer on your property and start renting it out. That's not what the law is, that we envision not to be.
Right,
Going to be a residential house, or again, a house next door, or if you have like a bungalow on your property already. I mean, we don't want people to just go out and start buying campers and putting them on their property and then
Well,
renting them out, because the next door neighbors, again, they're paying taxes too. They wouldn't be very happy about that either. So
yeah.
so I
definitely get all your points, because it's a lot of really good, valid points. And we went through this right out for like months of trying to make this as as good for the renter as it is for the neighbor. So,
Right, absolutely. You know, and hopefully that's where your inspection would come in and it would be more of a
Right.
partnership.
So,
But as it's written that, you know, people who have acres of land like myself and some of the local farmers, we won't be able to do it, you know, and
No.
that could support our agricultural tourism. But if
no,
we
they
do
can't do it.
that,
They
feels
can't
good.
do it because basically we looked at every law from Woodstock to there
Right.
on, and they don't allow that type of thing anyhow. So it's, we looked at all those aspects, and matter of fact, some laws have it where you actually can't have a trailer or anything like that, an RV or anything like that. So so we went by, Woodstock has 400 short-term rentals. We have 16 to 18. Basically, we're trying to make this in compliance for everybody, so this way they could actually do this and be conforming to the code of the town of Marlborough. So this way, everybody's on the same page. It's like Scott says, it's miles away from where we started. And I'm happy about that. And we worked very hard with the attorneys, myself and Tom Corcoran, our building inspector. That being said, anybody else? But do
Yes, I
send
would
us
like
all
to-
that stuff, us,
Mr.
please.
Tadelbaum wants to. I think he
Doc, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Al? Nice to see you. And
Nice
it's
to
nice
see
to
you,
see
Ron.
you. Yeah, Shelley's here also, yeah.
Hi, Shelley.
Hello.
Thanks for doing this. This is terrific. With our prior experience with our neighbor makes us very sensitive to anything that you're going to do.
Absolutely.
We've had a very poor experience with a neighbor for a number of years. So I just want to make sure, and I just want to make sure that what we do helps protect the neighbors.
Absolutely.
As well as allow the homeowner to do what they need to do. And there is a happy medium in there, which will hopefully please most everyone. You can never please everybody, but you can please most everyone. So my question are two questions. Number one, do we have enough in there to protect the neighbors?
I think we do. I think one of the things that we have in there is, first of all, it's a minor site plan. It's not like your regular site plan, but the minor site plan, what we envision is that in the short term, in the minor site plan, it asks for surrounding neighbors. So notifying the surrounding neighbors about the short-term rentals. So if somebody was going to put something next to you for short-term rentals, you would be notified. And then in essence, it's almost like a public hearing, right? It is a public hearing. So that's what we entail. That's why we put it in there in one of the, for the minor site plan. So this way it protects the neighbor, so the neighbor knows what's going on. We also included a tree strikes are out. In other words, if Chief Kokoza at this site, at this short-term rental, if we have three types of any incidents of three times, it's three strikes you're out. So then you don't get a certificate and it's denied. So there's a lot of aspect in here to look at the neighbor and protect the neighbor. But and also it has stuff in there for short-term rental for the person who's trying to make ends meet with their taxes.
No, I'm all for that. My concern, however, is, with all due respect to the chief, is once you give something to somebody, it's very hard to take it away. And even though I agree with the three strikes and you're out, that's usually easier said than done. And I think, Chief, you got any thoughts on that, or?
Well, I could tell you before the chief kicks in, Doc, before this all started, I asked the chief to check the short-term rentals that from the Airbnb or whatever organization that books them. I asked them to look at these 16 or 17 short-term rentals to see what the backlog is with complaints and stuff like that, and it was very minor. So, Chief, you could take it from there.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to jump in and Mr. and Mrs. Tattlebaum, the board was really, the onus, I think, I know on myself, was basically for the neighbors' protection. And it was basically for me, I believe the rest of the board, we kind of really balanced this out the best we could.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I think we talked for like one whole meeting almost basically on this, right? This,
We yelled a little
protecting the
bit.
neighbors and trying to balance it with someone
Yeah.
pretty much, to make ends meet,
Sure.
in a bed and breakfast, but.
That's the law. That's
And
what we
basically,
have.
and the biggest part too is how, like you're gonna ask the chief and he's gonna talk to it, but how do we police this, right? It's a very hard thing to police and we don't have the manpower to police it 24/7. And we are assuming that neighbors are gonna police their next door bed and breakfast person. And like if there's issues going on, the first person who's gonna be knowing there's something going on would be the neighbor, and then they would contact the building department or the chief. And then we added the 3-strike rule if they are breaking the rules according to the application and planning process. So it's something we're trying to balance, as we've been saying here, and Al said, and hopefully if there's a little change that we have to make, we will make. But I think we pretty much talked this thing for months now, and I think we're almost at the point where I think it's a pretty good piece of legislation that we have in front of us at this point. So everything could get better.
Chief,
So in the past, there was not a lot of latitude for us to do enforcement. If a penal law or criminal law was broken, or even a violation, something was broken and able to be proven, then we could pursue that. With this new law, this new legislation you're looking to put forward on this, I think it doesn't really define what types of violations are listed as violations. So say an unprovable noise complaint, or even a proven noise complaint, we would only be able to write a summons for, possibly. Moving forward with 3 of those complaints, now through the building department, there's further action, the removal of the certificate, the closing of the business, that can be forced or levied. So I think with this, the new rulings you have now, there's a lot more consequences for the homeowner doing this business. Much easier to prove in court, not as much onus on the police department in reference to making it either a violation of the law or not. It's clear code, town code violation, which the building department can enforce. I will share, of course, information with the building department. They'll need to know that we've handled 3 complaints, 5 complaints, 8 complaints at a certain location. And then the building inspector will then go enforce whatever the planning and zoning rule violations would be. I think it'll make it a lot easier.
But that's the gray zone though, Chief, because you and I both know when we went through this before, using a noise meter,
Right.
it's very hard to prove it's over this or under that. And
yeah,
so
beating decimal, yeah.
the decimal reader.
Right. However, the new rules, a mere complaint could be enough, or a dozen complaints, whatever, could be enough. It doesn't say it needs to be substantiated or not. There just needs to be enough complaint support. So that would be a decision the board eventually, I would imagine, would have to make, or at least the building department would have to make, that neighbor A has complained 9 times in the last 2 days about noise. The police went there and it's below the level, but we've noticed the noise. We've asked them to turn it down, and we still have these constant complaints. Now that's something that can be moved into the building department for enforcement without an actual law violation. It'd be a code violation, but not a procedural criminal law or violation of the state law.
This to me is a real gray zone.
Mhm.
It needs further definition. I hate to put you in a spot where you and your guys aren't sure what's a complaint and what's not. And same with the building instructor. I think that we have to be very clear here that if I complain about my neighbor, that either it goes down in your books as a real complaint, or I'm just being annoying to the neighbor. I mean, how do you define that?
Well, clearly, if it's a noise type complaint, we'd have to be able to, for me to do something and write a violation on it, I'd have to establish that it's a certain decibel violation.
Which
Right, 'cause
is
there's
very
clear-cut
difficult.
codes for that.
Very difficult.
Right, which is very difficult. We've seen that, and it's actually for a noise complaint quite loud. However, I don't think that the way the code's written for the bed and breakfasts is that it requires an actual significant number for a noise complaint anyway, right? I mean,
We have a noise ordinance, as you know, Doc. I mean, we
Yep.
changed
Noted.
the dB down from 65 to 55.
Yeah.
With your recommendation, myself, Howard Baker, Councilman Baker,
Yes.
and Chief sat with you. So we lowered that down by 10 dB. So,
Well, what I'm trying to say is that for neighbors to have that is one thing. For somebody in an Airbnb who's here for a vacation and a good time, he may be at a level of 54. It doesn't break the 55, but boy, that's sure annoying me. Now, I can call my neighbor. I didn't say to him, gee, can you turn it down? And most of the times he will. But somebody in Airbnb is going to say, you know, I'm not breaking any law. I'm not doing anything wrong. But boy, is he annoying me. And that's what I want to try and avoid.
yeah, we're trying to avoid that. And so basically, we try to avoid it, lowering the decimal. This code kind of brings everything to notify the neighbors that there's going to be a B&B there. I think basically we're trying to, like how Councilman Corcoran said, we're trying to juggle two things here at once. So this is a new law. We're going to wait till the planning board gives their referral to see what they say. And then we'll move forward and see what happens, because basically, like you said, there's a lot of gray areas. But like we're talking about, most of the places like 16 or 17 B&Bs, we haven't really had that much complaint about noise and stuff from the neighbors. And I would tell you this, that our code enforcer has notified all those B&Bs that with summons, but during COVID, I mean, the courts are shut down, but some have taken it serious, and they've taken their B&B offline with Airbnb or any other different way of circulating that you're renting a B&B. So we'll have to just find out, you know. This is something new for the town, but I think the legislation tries to protect both the neighbor and the individual that has the B&B.
So I have a question. I'm
Sure.
all for Airbnbs. I mean, we've stayed in them. And I feel that it's a lovely way for other people to make income. So I don't have a problem with that part at all. The piece of it that I do, is it possible to write in there somewhere for the people who are renting out their homes to Airbnbs to really let them know that they're in a neighborhood and that they really need to be mindful of their neighbors, so that on their consciousness, they're not just going to have a party that weekend and renting it out, woohoo, and then they're gone. So that they're at least aware that there's a stipulation in there that they are in a neighborhood and they need to be mindful that they are, and to be considerate of the neighbors. So I'm just curious if that could be put into some of the bylaws that you're putting in there when people are renting their homes out.
Doesn't that go into
That's
the,
actually in the minor site plan, where the applicant has to show their neighbors, and the neighbors have to be notified about the B&B.
And we can also have the number of the person who owns the B&B in case we need to reach them. If there's a problem.
That would be directly in the building department's area, so you could give a call if something's bothering you, or
11 o'clock at
11
night.
o'clock at night, nobody's
yeah,
there.
I don't think, I know we had that terrible experience up by you all.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's what we're trying to avoid.
Right.
So we're trying to avoid that, like I said, and I'm going to keep the public hearing open. We're going to see what the referral from the county says. They might have a whole slew of things, because this is something new. Like I say, a lot of different towns have, like Woodstock has 400. They do a different way of doing it, but they control it. And Red Hook actually does it similar to what we do with a minor site plan. So we're aware of your concerns, and everybody else that's talked about their what they would like to see or removed or added, but let's see what happens. And Bridget, please send me all your questions and let's see what we can do here.
Well, we're very grateful that you're taking us into consideration because of our experience, because we don't want anyone else to have to go through what we went through.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you remember, I was there filming that. It was terrible. So
I think
I'm
also,
well aware of
Enough
that
said,
whole thing.
enough
yeah.
said, yeah.
yeah, also,
Enough said.
also, Mrs. Saddlebaum, I think going back to the 3 strikes, going through the application process, the applicant does know about the 3 strikes. So, the onus is going to be on them to police themselves as to not be, get those strikes on them, because they're going to have to renew that application every year. So there is a check and a balance there.
Yeah.
It-
And
It's
it's only allowed in certain districts. It's not allowed in the commercial or the industrial. It's the R and RAG1.
Right.
So a lot of that is rural areas, like Eric was saying, farming,
Yep.
trying to start a farm, getting that income and stuff like that. So a lot of it's out there. So let's see what happens.
okay, all right. That's fine. I appreciate the ability to speak here, and it's nice seeing you guys again.
Nice seeing you, Doc.
Yeah.
You look great. You and your wife.
Look good.
Thanks.
Stay safe.
You too.
So we're going to continue it. It's going to be, we're going to keep the public hearing open on this
Mr.
piece of
Supervisor?
legislation. And we'll continue it in 2 weeks. Howard,
I think James Garofalo wants to say something.
James?
James Garofalo. First, I'd like to say you don't have to wait till 11 o'clock at night to get their number. You could go there as soon as they're going to have a permit. You're going to know who they are. And I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to get their number right off the bat so that you don't have to be calling somebody up at 11 o'clock to try to get their number. You should hopefully have that. The second thing that I wanted to point out, that despite the fact that some people may not think that I know the difference between scaled maps and plans and surveys, I certainly do, working over 30 years in an environmental planning firm. I have worked with those for decades, and now with the planning board. As a matter of fact, the planning board in the conceptual site plan under 155-31D specifically says, item 2, a plan of the site showing approximate location of. Doesn't say a survey. It says under the conceptual design, you don't have to have a survey.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Under the site plan, it is very specific that the planning board under 155-31E 4C, that the boundaries of the property with survey dimensions, that's a requirement. So these are requirements that the town board has put into the code. Now, as you mentioned, the Ulster County parcel reviewer is very easy to access. And what I had suggested was putting in an aerial which you can get out of the Ulster County parcel viewer, which shows an aerial of the property with the property boundaries. And I think that is a very good thing to show people and to have people who are staying at places know where the boundary of their property is, so they don't go wandering off onto other people's property. Now, some of them may do that anyway, but at least they know when they're doing it because you're giving them a map. And this is something that is free to access. Yes, they do have to pay for the paper to print it on or to get a PDF of and send it to the town. But I think that this is a very simple thing to do to help protect the neighbors. And I think it would help the planning board because we will see the property, because we're not getting a surveyed plan from them unless most people like me, before I bought my house, had to have it surveyed. So I suspect that a lot of people have a surveyed plan. It may be an old one, but I think this is a very simple requirement that they provide an aerial photograph with the boundaries, that be put as part of what they are to do. And I don't see any reason why we could not provide instructions on how to go about getting to the site, finding the aerial, finding your site, and printing it out. I think that could be done, and you could even put that separate instruction on your website.
Thank you, James.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
You're welcome. Okay, anything else on short-term rentals? Like I said, we're waiting for referral from the county, so we're leaving the public hearing open on this piece of legislation. So if you have any other concerns that you didn't think about tonight, just write them down and send them to me, and I'll share it with the board. All right, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
So let's continue with our meeting. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that-
Motion.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you. Motion to approve minutes from the February 8, 2021 Town Board meeting.
Make that motion,
Need a second?
A second.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Authorized payment of the bills in the amount of $1,660 and $1,660,619 to pay the bill. That large amount is because we distributed the money to the two fire departments and plus the library and mill. Sarah
Yep.
Hall.
I make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None being said. Thank you, gentlemen. Presentation, we have Councilman Baker.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, guys. And I'll try to be as brief as possible. And
Thanks for the email, Howard, by the way, with all the information. So that was good too.
you're welcome. And I'm just gonna kind of briefly go through this, and I think Danielle's gonna put up the PowerPoint if she can. But as you guys, while she's doing that, as you all know, or most of you know that are on the call tonight, we've had a police reform committee working over the last several months to come up with findings and recommendations, as all towns in New York State have had to do because of the governor's executive order. I think it was back in April, he made this executive order. And basically, that was to look at our policies and procedures and see if we needed to make any changes. But before I get into that, the second slide there talks about the people that were on the committee. And I want to commend them all. They all did a great job. We had calls probably every other week there for several months, and everybody chimed in. Everybody had valid questions, and I think everybody learned a lot. And so I want to thank you all for that. I know on the phone or on the call tonight is Justin Pascal, who's a sergeant in the police force here in town. He had a lot of contributions and comments. William Wysop, I think he's on the call. He was our representing the DA's office, many years of experience. Of course, Eddie was on the committee. He's been with the police liaison for many, many years. Al, of course, was participating throughout, and Barbara also, who was fairly new to the community, not brand new, but new to the community. So it was good to get her feedback as well. But I also want to really commend our police chief, Jerry, who I said this many times before. He's done an absolutely great job in listening to people and putting up with a lot of our ignorance about things that the police do. So next slide talks about the police reform executive order. And that executive order explicitly said that we had to look at our current policies and procedures. And that document, if you're not familiar with it, is it's a big document. It's very thick, 300 plus pages. I didn't even know we had such a document before I got into this committee. So we were to look at the pertinent parts of that policies and procedures manual, which we did, then develop an improvement plan, which you have before you. We were to promote community engagement, which we did. We formed this committee, and we went out and got the public to comment on our police force. And of course, a part of all this was to look at any racial bias or disproportionate policing of communities of color, and we did that. So, and then the next slide is just the process. And as I said, we had bi-monthly video conference calls where we discussed all this. The pertinent areas of the policies and procedure manual were looked at, certainly not all of it, because some of it has to do with administrative procedures, and that's not what we were interested in. We were interested in the real nuts and bolts of real policing. We looked at arrest data for the town, and that was put together and reviewed. We sought public input on this, and the next slide will show what we got back. Then we put together a list of recommendations, which are in the report. The report is now out to you, and after tonight, hopefully it'll go out to the public. Once we get public comment back in a couple of weeks, then we will close that public comment, we hope, and then the report will be finalized and then sent to the state. And the deadline is to have that done by April 1st. And if we don't, I guess they would hold back some monies for the town. So we're going to make sure we meet that deadline. The next slide that talks about public input received. About a dozen people got back to us with feedback. There are 14 points that I've itemized here that summarizes what they said. It's pretty much in the order of which we received them. There were some great comments. There were some comments that praised the police, some that had legitimate concerns, and hopefully we've addressed those either in our recommendations or in the section of the report that talks about the background information of our police. I think a lot of people don't realize what it takes to be a policeman in our police force. They don't realize that all of our police go through the police academy. That amounts to 30 credits of training plus several hundreds of hours after that. So there's a lot of things that people don't know, including myself, that we've learned during this process that as part of what our recommendation is sort of getting this information out to the folks as to what we really do. And then the final chart there is a recommendation, just a summary of our recommendations. There are a lot more itemized. You can see that in the report, but basically there are 5 or 6 areas we focused on. Use of force, of course, was the focal point because of the George Floyd incident. So we did update the sections of the police procedures and policy manual that dealt with use of force. This is all work that Jerry did, making them more to match what the Department of Justice and Criminal Services says should be in there. So that's what the updates in those sections are about. We did update sections regarding mental health and EDP calls. And of course, we do support the use of body cameras. I think everybody on the committee agrees with that, but those are very expensive. Not something we can afford at this point in time. So that's something we're going to have to look at down the road as to whether we can get grants to help us go that route if we decide to. But it's a very expensive item for a small police department to put in their budget. We also recommended some changes in the hiring practices. Training was a big one. There is this excellent training now called Crisis Intervention Training, which is hosted by the Ulster County Sheriff's Office. It's expensive in terms of it takes people away from their job for 5 days, I think. So only 5 of our officers have gotten this so far, but we hope to do more of that in the future. And also there's, I believe, other training that the Ulster County Sheriff's Office is putting together regarding community interaction and so forth. And we're in touch with the Ulster County Sheriff's Office. And as soon as they come up with something new in that regard, I think we'll engage with them on that. So that may also have some impact on our budgets going forward. I think this year, we have a budget as it is, and we'll have to try to figure out how we can work within our current budget to get as much training done as possible this year. And maybe next year we'll have to do a little bit more in terms of a budget for training. Another thing we did was a significant recommendation was reinstitute yearly performance evaluations. There's a complete new section 2.26, that outlines a really totally revamped performance evaluation section and a form and so forth, which the chief and the supervisors can use to evaluate their officers. Complaint handling, we're going to make that a little bit easier and for people to lodge complaints, put something on our website, and we will report monthly as to whether we receive these complaints and what the outcome of those are. And community relations and transparency. This policies and procedures manual, once these changes are adopted, we'll put that out on the town website. So everybody can see what it is that our police force has to know about their job. And the use of force statistics, of course, we'll be more transparent about that. We'll report that at our monthly town board meetings, which we started a couple of months ago. So this is just a summary of the recommendations. There are many more in the actual report, which I urge you all to look at. And like I said, we will make this available, the report and the sections that are going to be updated, available to the public. Well, actually, they're out there now, but and I'll keep it open for comment until our next meeting on March 8th. So that's the resolution that we have before us later on in the meeting. So anyway, that's just a summary of what we did. I don't know if anybody else on the committee wants to say anything. Again, I thank them really for their honesty and sincerity in the things that we discussed. So it was a really good experience for everything.
Howard, I'd also like to, thank you for your due diligence. You worked really hard putting together all the meetings and the Zoom meetings and everything, which, wasn't the easiest task.
Right.
The one thing though that I would like to point out and just reiterate regarding, and we had this discussion in the past regarding the numbers of people pulled over, their race, creed, and what have you. The county numbers compared to the population of the town. I just want to, again, reiterate that, as far as those numbers are concerned, it's a number based on the county numbers, but it's not a true study of the whole entire picture, if you will. Because we had made mention earlier, I think it was the last time we spoke about this, about people of color, the amount of people of color versus Caucasians that were pulled over. And the number wasn't exact because the study would take a tremendous amount of time and money to get that true number, transients versus the actual population of people of color within the town.
Right. I mean, to get a real, I think what Justin's trying to say is looking at the data, the arrest data that we have, we have it split out by Caucasian, Black, and Hispanic. And so you have those raw numbers, but then what do you compare that to? Out of what population? And a lot of our arrests on 9W, we've said, a lot of our arrests in the town are along the 9W corridor. And that population is different than the population of the town of Marlboro. So you couldn't take that arrest data and just apply it to the town of Marlboro population of 8,000. Somewhere between 16,000 and 30,000 people supposedly go up and down the 9W corridor every day. So is that the population you're comparing it to? Possibly. Well, what is that population? I don't really know. So but there could be disproportionality in our data, and we'll accept that, and we'll accept that possibly implicit bias could be part of that reason we might see disproportion. We don't know for sure, but we're going to accept that could be a possibility, and therefore that was one of our recommendations, that implicit bias training, which I'm sure is in every town in New York State's recommendations, is something we need to look into and do more of in the future. So, and that's what we plan to do. But implicit bias is not something that's just something that's part of our police force. It's something that's we all have. It's throughout our society. So
Howard, I'd like to thank yourself and Sergeant Pascal for all his input, and Jerry for a fantastic job being open, looking at things, and being very open to different ideas and stuff like that. I mean, I think we're blessed to have you and the sergeant. I think we learned a lot. I know I learned a lot, but just listening to this stuff, and a lot of the things that I got out of it, that the town of Marlborough is really grateful for our police force, and I know I am in the board also. So I thank you for all the work you're doing, and unfortunately, sometimes things happen where, hey, opens your eyes a little bit, you learn something, you improve something. We're always looking to improve ourselves. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the hard work you put into it. Really appreciate it. And all the committee and Ed and, they did a fantastic job and a great piece of work done by all. So I want to thank you as supervisor for doing that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Jerry,
Thank
you
you.
want to say
Thank you.
anything?
Yes. So in the beginning, when we started this, I was worried about the committee members that were going to be chosen to be put on here. I do appreciate all the committee members on there. We've had a range of conversations from both ends of the spectrum. At times it was frustrating. At times it was rewarding. I don't to this day agree to everything that was said, but the nice thing about it is it was done with preciseness. It was done with respect, and it made it easy for me to understand where everybody was coming from. It is Marlborough. We are a quaint little town. We've never had any in custody deaths. We never shot at anybody. That doesn't mean tomorrow morning's a new day and who knows what can happen, but going back in history, it's been a great place. We haven't had the issues or the crisis that the nation has had. It doesn't mean it can't happen in Marlborough. It's just that I believe that the officers who've worked for us currently and have worked for us in the past and hopefully in the future will have the sound, calm, level-headedness that we need in order to move forward without any violence or undue violence. Because like I said, you never know when an incident could occur where an officer has to defend himself or another. So that's the difficult world that we live in. And having that authority to do so, to take a human life, is a huge responsibility. And I don't think there's ever been an officer in Marlborough that's ever thwarted that responsibility or thought any less of it. I don't think anybody ever wants to have to do that. Unfortunately, we are the people that are donned with that task. So we as administrators need to make sure our guys have the best training that's available, as much training as we can get to them to make them as good or even better than they are today. I do appreciate the work of all the group. I look forward to comments that people might have. I'm looking forward to get this done. It's been a huge project, lots of hours on everybody's part. It's time to move on and accomplish some of the other tasks we have at hand. Thanks again for everybody for helping us out.
Thank you, Jerry.
I just wanted to bring up one more point to end on a positive note here. Speaking of human life, this morning we were dispatched to a 50-year-old male that was having chest pains. Upon our arrival, he was in cardiac arrest. We worked on him for 40 minutes, and I'm happy to say, as of right now, he's alive. And we've all done CPR a number of times, and oftentimes, to be candid, it doesn't work. But through all the hard work of the guys this morning, he's still alive today. So just want to say,
Wow.
These guys
Great
do a
job.
great
Great
job.
job.
They're first responders, so you do a fantastic job. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you very much, the chief and his force, and thanks. You the guys are right there, right from the start. You get the call, you're right there. You beat the Noble Life, you beat everybody. So we really appreciate it.
Sure do.
Wow.
It's fantastic. Thank you.
Is that it, Howard, or?
That's it, guys, unless you have any questions for us, or if Bill Weissop wants to say something, or Barbara, also on the committee.
I guess not.
Howard, I thank you.
Yo.
I think you did a good job, Howard, and
I just
appreciate
wanted
all
to
the
say,
support.
Howard, if I may, that thank you for asking me. And on the other hand, the police, it's always good to know them and know who they are. And thank you as well.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
And Bill, did you have something to say? You wanted to say? I'm sorry.
I just want to say, I enjoyed working with you all. We still probably have a little work to do, after the board makes their decisions. But you have a wonderful police department down there. They really go out of their way, not only to assist the citizens of the town, but to assist other members of law enforcement and particularly members of the DA's office. So you're spot on when you say they are very eager and willing members of the community to help anyone at any time. And that's a blessing for your town down there.
And Bill, how long you been doing this in the DA's office?
You had to ask that, huh?
Yeah.
About 45 years.
Amazing.
Wow.
Okay. So I take that, what you just said with a lot of, I believe what you said, Bill. I respect you. Anybody else want to say anything? I'm not sure who, there's a phone number. I'm not sure who that is. I don't know if that's one of our committee members or not, but 1-202-549-7594, whoever you are, did you want to say something?
Howard, it's Jeff Magliotto. Just don't have anything
yes.
to say.
Hey, Jeff.
The wordsmith, the man who helped me greatly with the report. Thank you very much.
Well, and again, thank you especially to Howard and to the chief. They both did a heck of a lot of work on this.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, Al.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, let's move forward. Any new business, gentlemen? Anybody have any new business? Okay. Workshop topics. So we talked about this a little bit. We touched on it, the short-term rental application and fee. As you know, the application fee for the planning board is $550. The escrow is $750. It is a big chunk. And then the certification for the short-term rental. Maybe it'd be better if you sent me an email or you want to discuss it here, but me and Tom has a couple ideas because of the $550 and $750. We're thinking maybe waiving the certificate application amount. And we're thinking about that. So that was pretty high too. We were talking about because it comes with the the inspection of the safety and fire inspection, which is worth $100. Maybe we could talk about maybe the certification being 200. We talked about 500. I think it's a little steep, but I'm open for any suggestion. I kind of like the idea of after you spend all that money, there's no telling how much you would get back from the $750, if anything, because that's escrow for the engineer and the lawyer.
So they're out. Is everybody frozen? Pretty bizarre internet connection. Okay.
Is quite a bit of, it's quite a knot. So,
Well, oh, not to interrupt you. You said the 750 is for escrow, right?
yeah.
So possibly you would get some of that back. I mean, there's a possibility
know,
you would. I don't know. You don't know, and I don't know if you would. But I don't think the 500 or 550s, I don't think that's unreasonable.
I do.
I think, I mean, if you're gonna start a business and you're gonna be serious about this, I mean, you can't make it $50 and let everybody jump on board. I mean, this is gonna be a commitment to do it. If you're gonna take it on, $500, $550 is not a lot of money as far as an investment into a business. But basically that's what this is.
So you're talking about like $1,200 and some dollars.
I think that's a lot of money, and I would like to see it less than $500. I don't know what the right amount is, but it seems like an awful lot of money. That
For the application,
mm-hmm.
I think the 750 probably, I know my daughter went through it and the 750 was gone before you know it.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna say 750 is probably gonna be used, right? I'm assuming, because they definitely got to go to at least 2 meetings.
So they're gonna use that regardless.
Yeah,
Right.
we use the 750 with lawyer and engineering fee.
So then you're just looking at your initial startup fee would be the 550 after you put your, your investment in there that's part of the investment, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that's 1250, not 550.
I know, it's 750. I know what the number is, but I mean, you're talking about the 750, which irregardless you'd have to spend anyway.
My
So-
opinion is it should be less, and at least the application fee. I don't see why what's the $500 for? What does it cover?
So did you think about any kind of money like
200, I don't know.
200, 250, 300?
Yeah, it just seems like an awful lot of money to fill out an application.
Well, the application and then it's the certificate too that you have to pay for. And what's that fee gonna be?
Right, I don't know. What
Well, the
is it now?
certificate would be an annual. I mean, the application is going to be your one-time fee, and then your
Yeah.
certification, your annual certification. I'm not saying that should be 550, but
Which
that-
Why don't we like do something like, so the first year that you apply, that 550 includes the certification fee, right?
That's what I'm thinking.
And
I'm
then
thinking you
the
waive-
following years, then you have your certification annual fee. So,
Right.
so you know, when you come in there, okay, it's 1250 to get in there, right, to get in.
That's the
And that
suggestion.
includes your first year's certification. Then you got to go for an annual certification every year. And if that's, what is it, 350 or something like that? But that's gonna include your fire inspection, which is $100 right off the bat, right?
So that certificate, that's what we were talking about. That's what doing the waiver for the certificate.
Yeah,
After
for the
you
first
go
year.
through the planning board. I agree. If the board agrees with that, I think that's a good start to waive the fees for the certificate. And then the following year, maybe make it so it's like, so $100 is usually paid, $50 for fire inspection, $50 for the other inspection. It's $100 you're gonna spend anyhow. Maybe make it 200, and then if you have have more than 2 bedrooms, you add $50 to each bedroom, something like that, or not. But
Ed's texting me that he can't speak through here. You can't speak, Ed? Nod yes or no? No. He's saying I can't speak. Someone say Ed wants to say that he's okay with the fees. So, just so you know, he can't
Okay.
speak.
So,
Well, he can't speak because
I think that everybody's agrees on waiving the first certificate amount, whatever that is, and we could determine what that is. Either 200 to start off with or 250, whatever we agree with. But I think the first initial thing is to alleviate some of the pain. Alan's right, but hearing some people tonight that might be a struggle, so it helps them. So I think.
Well, when we have fees, I mean, the fees are supposed to cover.
Internet keeps dropping. No.
Back to part of your business plan. I mean, you're gonna have to make it work. And if you go in there thinking you get $50 a night, I don't see how that's gonna work.
Well, basically too, I mean, they have to pay fees to whatever different sources they're using, right? Airbnb.
It's a
and-
percentage, yeah.
Yeah, and also this whole thing is also for the county to get their bed tax and their taxes also. Of course, one of the things in the resolution is for them to notify the county of their intentions of a B&B. So they're taking a little bit money and a little bit money. So, I mean, it's not pure profit at all. So
I know it's not pure profit. No business is out, but I mean,
I know that.
we can't give it away either. You know what I mean? So
So let's discuss it. What are you thinking about? What's the
I'm
what's the
back to the
number you
550.
think- What's the number you're thinking about?
I'm back to the 550.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so if you want to do 550 every year, then Alan?
Yeah.
All right, I mean, I'm not opposed to that either. I just think in the first year, I don't think we should try 550 and then another 450 or 350 for a certification. I think it should be in that 550.
I'd be in favor of doing, the 550 application, and that includes your 1-year cert and then your recertification as follows.
So you are in favor of the 550 for the planning board stage and the 750, and then waive the fee for 1 year until
I don't
the
know.
next year.
I'm fine with that because like Scott said, it makes sense. It covers time.
My opinion is it's a little too much money, 550. So
It's
I
too
like
much
the
money,
first-
and 550 every year, in my opinion, is too much. I mean, I don't think we're trying to make money on this deal. These people are taxpayers in our town as well, so they pay taxes, and on top of that, we're gonna fee them to death. I don't see that. So,
So that's a discussion that we can have.
okay.
Ed says, I think the fees.
Chief, can I ask a question, Chief? Do you know off the top of the head? I just don't know it I can't remember off the top of my head. What is the yearly fee we have for the towing list? I mean, I know some of this stuff we were trying to relate to the towing, but it's not the same, but
The yearly permit's 200.
so it's just 200 for towing. Okay, I'm just trying to get a idea of what things we were doing. All right. I know it's not apples to apples, but just.
So let's think about it a little further and add that.
Yeah, and we could check around other towns like.
I'll
we
check
do all the
around.
time.
Basically, a lot of towns don't have it where you go in, it's a lot more cleaner or much more easier, where they don't have to actually go for a site plan, a minor site plan. It's just done through the application process. And so I look at all those fees and text everybody, tell you what the surrounding, but it's there again, it's not really going to be apples to apples because we have 18. I know a lot of people, since Tom has summons them, have backed off. You don't see them on the website anymore on Valero or Airbnb. So, but some are still going at it. So, I'll check in to see what the average certificate or what people are charging. But then again, like Alan was saying, I mean, it's a business, but basically, when you're talking about like Woodstock, they got 400. So if you do 400 and you do an application fee of 250, 400 people come in, and plus I don't know how many building inspectors they have. So you have to take everything in concern, but
Yeah, no, you have to do that too, Al, but they have 400 possible B&Bs. We have what? We're in the teens, right? 16, something like that right now. So say we go to 20, that's supply and demand. I mean, when I go on like Home to Go and I'm looking at what's being, charged per night, I'm looking at houses that are going from anywhere from $600, for 2 nights. I mean, I went Friday to Sunday. I kind of did a search. Some of them are $600, some of them are $1,100, some of them are $2,000, depending on the size. So, I'm not saying that these people aren't going to be renting their house out for $50 a night.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
No.
I don't want, look, they're going to be, I God bless them. I want them to make money. I want them to get $3,000 a night. I'm not asking for an absorbent amount of money, but I'm saying I also don't want to be played. You know what I mean? So.
How you doing, Tom?
All right, so I had a bunch of building permits. I didn't leave work till almost 7, so then I had to get home and shovel and plow, so.
Not a problem. So
I mean, I think I kind of, what Alan's saying, I mean, like I said, if we the first year just bypass that secondary fee and then we go for every year with the 500, 550 fee, I mean, I agree. I see what he's saying because, I don't know what I don't know what they're charging per night, but I'm sure it's like 200 a night, 300 a night. I don't know.
Well, it depends, like Alan says, if it's a house, someone charging like $400 a night. We're going to Wisconsin, we're doing an Airbnb and it's a house and it's extremely expensive. It depends on where it is, location.
Yeah, of course.
And time of season, so I get it.
I mean, it would be easier just to say have a lower application fee or certification fee and say we could say it's $5 a night that it goes to the town. I don't know, like a tax like the county does, but we can't.
Yeah, we don't want to get into that.
No, we don't do that. So, I mean.
Tom, you have your hand up.
Just realize whatever fee you charge, there's $100 built into that anyway, because I've got to charge $100 special use fire inspection fee.
Yeah,
So if you're charging 5, it's like 400. All right.
We were talking about
Just,
it, Tom.
yeah. And guys,
Yeah,
I just want to bring up, I mean, we might have 20 of these things, but we also have to say like, look, we went over tonight that there could be problems, right? There could be problems with neighbors, there could be disputes. Now we're now not taxing literally, but now we're putting the stress on our police department. We're taking away their man hours. Maybe now if we get big, we have to put on another patrol. What about our mobile life contract? Now we're bringing more people into the town. So indirectly, if we let this go too fast and don't collect the appropriate amount of fees, we could actually be hurting ourselves in the long run, because we may have to expand our services while we're not actually taxing them. Because we're not going after these people, as a tax. We're not doing it, but the fees are going to have to cover. And there could be a possibility if this grows, and I hope it does grow. I'm not against it. If it grows, then we're going to start stressing our other services. And then what does that fall? That falls onto the shoulders of the broad tax base, which is the normal taxpayers that don't have the opportunity to do this.
right. So it also covers where it's at the discretion of the town board of how many short-term rentals.
I know. Yeah, I know.
So if it gets out of hand, we could draw it back and, we could see what's happening. Tom, we were talking about, because of the $550 application fee and the $750, we were talking about waiving the first certificate cost. You're fine with that? Yeah, we talked about it at length. So now we're just talking about the cost of the certificate. I think $550 is a little too high. So let's kick that around a little bit down the street and see what we come up with between us and see if we can come to some kind of compromise. Tom, do you have, is that okay, guys? Is that all right with you guys?
Howard, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was muted. On the application part, my only suggestion there is, there's been discussion about survey versus to scale drawing versus picture from the Ulster County Planning Board. Maybe we should just give them Tom, like you do now with your some of your shed projects and so forth. You give them a template, sort of that. Then you kind of draw out a sketch on that template, right? And for the application, we could do
for the picture of you're talking about for the picture of the shed or nothing for the setbacks. Setbacks is just a plot plan.
Right. Well, but we're trying to simplify that so you don't have to do a survey. So
that's why we took the wording out last meeting.
Yeah.
Right. So all I'm suggesting in the application could be one sheet of paper that has some kind of scale on it that makes it easier for people to show what they're doing. That was the only suggestion. Now,
that's in the code. I mean, just a rough scale where it is, it's how many.
Right, and I'm saying provide that as part of the application, second sheet in the application, something drawn to scale that we provide, and they just fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a quick question real quick? We're talking about Airbnbs in existing structures, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So this isn't a shed. They're not moving towards a property line. There isn't going to be anything. I mean, I think what James has a legitimate point where he says, okay, people could be intrusive on other people's property. Well, that could easily be like, you could do a deed by monument. You can put something there, or you can just put up a posted no trespassing sign. I mean, nothing's moved here. It's a house. It's a bungalow. It was there.
Yeah. Well, it has to have a CO. It has to have all the right inspections by.
It's already there.
I mean,
it's there, but you're going to want to show where the parking is and all that sort of thing.
Right. And you could do that without an engineer or survey guy. I mean, that's
I'm
acceptable.
just saying, give on the application, give them a simple sheet of paper, maybe a graph paper that's sort of has a scale on it already, and they can fill it in. That's all.
Well, the whole thing is they could go to the we were talking about before. They could go to the Ulster County parcel, or they could go to Google Maps. They have a lot of things that
parcel viewer would be perfect. Yeah, not everybody knows how to use that, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. But we could actually, when we do the short-term rental, the minor short-term rental that the planning board hopefully will adopt, we could put in there parcel viewer, go to blah, 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 and give them the information that way. So this way you know exactly who their neighbors are and stuff like that. You think that's a good idea, Tom?
Allow tiny homes?
Parcel viewer is not the best. If you ever use parcel viewer, there's lines that go through the middle of houses.
Yeah. Some are good, some are bad. So what do you recommend?
Most are bad.
Google?
Well, I recommend you just do like we do with our plot plan. You draw where the road is, you draw where your house is, and you give me an estimate of how far you are from the property lines.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't care. I only care where the parking is.
Okay,
That's the main
There you
thing,
go.
parking, right?
that's simple.
And are we
Going back
considering,
to nightly rentals, just so you know, looking up online here, the one in Milton right now is 240 a night. All around it is 280, 300, 500. So like Alan said, these, they're not renting them out for $50 a night. They're
No,
like,
I know.
I wouldn't expect that.
so
We-
I don't know if
we-
the 550 really is that over excessive, to be honest.
Ah,
Well, maybe not. I don't know. I just disagree. I think we asked too much of our chief. Are we considering tiny houses or as a suitable rental, short-term rental unit?
What are they?
What
Would you,
else?
yeah, Howard, I'm sorry.
Tiny houses?
No.
Basically, no.
But
Okay.
it's all, most of the people that, and most of the legislature and most of the applications I see, they don't have that. It's either, something that has that's CO, it's approved building, blah, blah, blah. It's the building inspector knows about it. That's it.
So there's no such thing as a tiny house.
Yes, but you know what I mean. They're existing.
Well, that's a trailer. That's a camper. That's not allowed. New
It's
York's-
an RV.
What you watch on TV doesn't make no sense because the tiny home has no existence here. It's just it's governed under the trailer authorization under DMV.
The only reason I ask is because there is one in town that has been rented out as a Airbnb.
I'm after it too because Reddy wrote it up.
Okay.
The one that was advertised in the paper, yeah, that's illegal, totally illegal. There's two of them. One off of Latin Town Road past you in the back. They've been written up. And once court opens up, they're going to court. And the other one too, the Glass House. They're both going to court.
I know I think the ones that have the tiny houses have taken it off the B&B circulation per your summons.
Right.
Okay, so some
So
people.
tiny houses are
active-
considered trailers, or is that what you're saying, Tom?
They're RVs,
Yeah,
they're registered RVs, so you can't have a registered RV. It's like
Okay,
Alan was saying before, somebody gets a trailer and parks
No,
it
right.
there. It's not acceptable. Yeah, you gotta read the code.
Yep.
The code is very, very a matter of fact. So I think it's a pretty good code to start with. We'll find out once we iron out the wrinkles or whatever happens. So we'll still have to find out what the Ulster County Planning Board has to say in their referral. And they meet the first Wednesday in March. COVID-19, you have anything to report, Tom?
Let's see what we got. Currently, the confirmed cases in Ulster County are 10,600. We have 1,591 active cases. In Marlborough right now, we have 675 confirmed with 105 active and 564 recovered. Still 6 deaths, one's too many, but our number has been consistent in comparison to Lloyd. Lloyd's numbers are up. Lloyd's number has had 1,010 confirmed, 163 still active with 55 fatalities. So we were well under that. Right now we've tested, what did we test? Total tested 284,000. We've tested with 274,000 negative, and that's at $10,000 number that's positive right now. So I mean that's a quick generic on what's going on.
Yeah. We had like altogether 227 deaths. So that's.
For the county, yeah, 227 is the number.
I don't understand why Lloyd is so high when I look at it.
Nursing homes.
More nursing homes.
Nursing homes.
Three
That's
nursing.
right. 161, yep, nursing
Yeah,
homes.
over 40 people in one nursing home, I think, died. So
Yeah.
I think even when Plattekill, remember when this all first started, Plattekill, they had a big spike, it was because of the nursing home out there.
Yeah.
That very first one, yeah. When Plattekill led us in that first month or so because of that,
Yeah.
and then they leveled right out.
Yeah.
Hey, Al, I have this scheduled till 9 o'clock. I don't know if it shuts us off at 9 o'clock or not, but just so you know, just so you're aware.
I hope so.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. So moving along faster than I thought. I was thinking about what you guys think about a referendum for a 4-year term for the highway superintendent, to add that into the November, I think it's 3rd or 4th, whatever, election, that we have a referendum for a highway superintendent to go 4 years. What do you think about that?
Should have got voted last time, but it went down last time.
Well, are we willing to try again? I'm more
I'm
than
willing to try again.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be
I think
great.
the supervisor should be 4 years too. I think 2 years for any position is
Well,
unbelievable.
I think 2 years is like, I think it's good for a supervisor. This way, if you get a hint of 2 years of somebody that's not that great, you could kick them out. So it gives the public, some,
Think about the 2 years though, if you're brand new and and it takes you almost a year to get acquainted with everything, and then you're back into politicianing again. So
ridiculous.
That's why I don't even agree with, the Congress and all those people that go 2 years. It's like 2 years is too short.
Exactly.
But anyway, I have no problem with John putting that on the ballot.
yeah, okay, that's great. So we'll work on that. I have no correspondence. Any public comments? Any public comments? No comment.
I have one public comment.
Yes, James.
With regard to the short-term rentals, I think there's a big difference between people who may be renting out their entire house as opposed to somebody who's just renting out a room.
Yeah.
And that in terms of the fees that they charge are probably considerably different. So I don't know as if you want to look at that in your fee structure, but I just wanted to bring that out, particularly, a person just trying to rent out a single room. It's going to be a lot less work also for the planning board, but that's just something for you to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Good point. Okay. Shall we go to the resolutions? Anybody else? Public comments? Okay. Resolutions, number 30. Supervisor Lanzetta proposes the following, whereas the town of Marlborough Police Department has an open position for a part-time police officer, and whereas it is recommended of the chief of police and the police committee to appoint Gina Kehoe, Kehoe, as part-time police officer. Be it resolved that Gina Kehoe be appointed effectively immediately, and moves for its adoption. Danielle?
Councilman Corcoran?
Yes.
No.
Ed,
Councilman
what do you say,
Malinelli? Okay. Councilman Koenig?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yeah, excellent candidate.
Okay, Supervisor Lanzetta?
Yes, thank you. The next resolution 31, to appoint a part-time police officer. Supervisor Lanzetta proposes the following. Whereas the town of Marlborough Police Department has an open position for a part-time police officer, and where it is recommended the chief of police and the police committee to appoint Christopher Hamel, Hamel, as part-time police officer. We resolve that Christopher Hamel be appointed effective immediately, and moves for its adoption.
Councilman Corcoran?
Yes.
Councilman Malinelli? Councilman Koenig?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes, another great candidate.
Supervisor Lanzetta?
Yes, thank you. Resolution 32, to add a return check fee to the town of Marlborough for Marlborough's fee schedule. On the Marlborough fee schedule, Supervisor Lanzetta proposes the following, where there has been an increase of return checks for insufficient funds, and whereas the town of Marlborough would like to add a $35 return check fee to the town of Marlborough fee schedule, be it resolved that the town board of the town of Marlborough hereby approves adding a $35 return check fee to the fee schedule, and moves for its adoption.
Councilman Corcoran?
Yes.
Councilman Malinelli? Councilman Koenig?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Supervisor Lanzetta?
Yes, thank you. Resolution 33 to adopt local law 1 of the year 2021 to amend section 2 of the local law number 2 of 2015, term dates for planning board members. Supervisor Lanzetta proposes the following. I don't think I have to read this. I think we beat it to death pretty much. So there was, during the public comment, there was a suggestion that we also separate 2024 and 2025. What's the board's feelings on that? To leave it the way it is or try to?
I'm okay with the way it is. That's me.
Okay.
Ed says yes.
I don't have a problem the way it is. I like this. I would like to see it go to 7 years, but that's not what's going to happen. So I think this is a good compromise. We do get 2 in 2024 and 2 in 2025. We waived the Manny Caccio and Robert Tronsolito, and they only added a year. So it's from the 2021 and 2022 period. 2023 is okay. In 2024, we have 2. In 2025, we have 2 members. So that being said, I'm not going to read the whole resolution. It's on the website. So Danielle, can you poll the board, please?
Sure. Supervisor Lanzetta,
Yes.
Councilman Molinelli, thumbs up. Councilman Corcoran,
Yes.
Councilman Baker,
No.
Councilman Koenig.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. So resolution 34, do you want to read this, Howard?
I'll give it a shot.
All right.
Councilman Baker proposes the following. Whereas by Executive Order 203 issued by Governor Cuomo on June 12, 2020, that requires all local governments in the state to adopt a policing reform plan by April 1st, 2020. And whereas that same executive order declared that every municipality with a police agency must perform a comprehensive review of current policies, force deployments, strategies, policies, procedures, and practices for the purpose of addressing the particular needs of communities served by each police agency, and promotes community engagement to foster trust, fairness, and legitimacy, and to address any racial bias and disproportionate policing of communities of color. And whereas the Town of Marlborough Town Board has formed a committee of community members, clergy, town board members, and local and county law enforcement experts to develop a report and set of recommendations. And whereas a draft report and recommendations dated February 10th, 2021 have been presented to the board for their approval. And whereas Councilman Baker advised the town board that pursuant to Executive 203 will be necessary to hold a public hearing of this plan, he offered the following resolution, which was seconded by
Al Lanzetta.
who moved for its adoption. Resolved that a public hearing be held in relation to the proposed changes as set forth in the formal notice hereinafter provided, at which hearing parties of interest and citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard. Public hearing will be held remotely via the video conferencing platform Zoom in accordance with the governor's executive order 202.1 on March 8, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. prevailing time, and that notice of said meeting shall be published in the official newspaper of general circulation in the town of Marlborough by the town clerk at least 5 days before such hearing, and notice shall be in the following form. And that's our standard form after that. And signed by Colleen Corcoran, our town clerk. And the foregoing resolution was duly put to a vote, which resulted as follows.
Supervisor Lanzetta,
Yes.
Councilman Molinelli, Councilman Corcoran,
Yes.
Councilman Baker,
Yes.
Councilman Koenig.
Yes.
And thanks again for everybody that was on that committee. Chief, great job. Sergeant, I love the mustache. You look like the first, I don't know if you ever read this book, The First Italian Detective. You gotta read that book. Great book.
I'll
Anyway,
be sure to put it on the list.
okay. I think that just about does it, gentlemen. It's a great meeting. Thank you for the workshop topics. Thank you, everybody who participated in the public hearing on the two laws. So it brings us to our final discussion. What do you got to say about that, Alan?
Yeah, just like, again, like, I'd like to bring this up, just for thought. Everyone can think about it. Let me know if you agree, but I was wondering if I can get a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
All right, guys.
Second, thank you. Thank you.
Perfect.
Great meeting. Thank you,
Thank you,
Danielle.
everybody.
Everyone have a good night, okay?
All right, appreciate
Good
it.
night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Danielle.
Good night.